Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. My name is Rich, and joining me to cover the Ultimate Beastmaster is Bijan. How you making out?
The Ultimate Beastmaster. Dude, I'm feeling great, man. That show was so good. Today is a good day in the Ninja Warrior community. That's all I gotta say, man.
Absolutely. I was a little worried. I saw some rumors that it wasn't going to be quite as good, but no worries. After I saw the first episode, it is absolutely awesome. I can't wait to cover it today.
Yeah, everything. I adore this show. It is so creative, and the cool part about it is it's very different from American Ninja Warrior in many aspects. It still is a show based on obstacles, so it's in all of our wheelhouses, but yet their approach to an obstacle course show is completely different. The format, the obstacles, the athletes, everything about it. But the number one thing I have to say, man, the production value of this show is phenomenal. And I never realized just how much of a difference it makes, but it is so pertinent when you watch a show. It just stands out so much. I love it.
Yeah, we're going to go through it in a bunch of detail. And we're also going to do, say it with me, Ninja Warrior UK semifinals 2. We'll be covering that, and then we'll have one more episode of that. And then we'll actually be getting into Team Ninja Warrior territory, so that should be interesting. We're going to have the Ultimate Beastmaster and Team Ninja Warrior going on at the same time. This is like the best off-season present ever.
Oh yeah, that's good times. We just have to get through the scab of UK Ninja Warrior. One more week, man.
But yeah, and then we have some ninja news and other stuff to cover as well. So let's get into Ultimate Beastmaster, because I know we're both really anxious to. And we're going to be covering just episode 1 this time around. I'm not sure how we're going to proceed from here. We're still debating whether to do multiple episodes at a time or to kind of do a one at a time. So let us know what you think. If you want to send us a quick shout out if you prefer us breaking it down bit by bit or kind of summarizing a little more.
Bit by bit.
Bijan's big on the episode by episode. So we'll see. We'll see how we make out here. We have a lot to cover because really, we have to introduce you to everything. For those that haven't seen it, there is a lot. So, overall impressions first. I think we've made it pretty clear we really enjoyed it. Great course, high production value. Like, the graphics and the atmosphere of the whole thing is like watching like Mortal Kombat or something. Like, it's really crazy.
What a great analogy. Yeah, I never thought of that, but it very much is, right? And I have to say, my favorite part of this entire show is, and I didn't even think about it at the time, is the component of the different countries. Not only do we have different teams, but we have the hosts from each country being a part of the show. It made it so much more fun.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I kind of thought it was going to be segregated, like we would have the U.S. hosts. But, I mean, really, when you look at it, the South Korean hosts stole the show.
They're the best.
Like, they were amazing.
There were a few hosts that were just so good. I remember Team Mexico's hosts. They were just so disappointing. You could always see the defeat on their faces, and they just made it fun. Like, every team, every hosting team, they have their own personalities and their own approach to it, and it just makes it really, really fun. And, yeah, they're just schooling like UK Ninja Warrior in every facet of it. And in some respects, they're actually doing quite a better job, not at hosting, but in some parts of the show, they're doing a better job than American Ninja Warrior. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but man, really fun atmosphere. Just like we already talked about the production values and the atmosphere, but now the tone of the show is absolutely picture perfect. It is very serious when it needs to be. They introduce the people perfectly, tell really personable stories. But then when they can get lighthearted when there's accomplishment and everything, and they can get more crestfallen when somebody fails, they hit the tone perfectly.
Absolutely. Like, it is fun and celebratory, but they don't revel in people's falls at all. Like, it's absolutely right where it needs to be. I can't say enough good about the tone. I until you said that, I hadn't really given it much thought, but yeah, it hits that perfect balance. I wouldn't say I like it more than A&W, but I certainly like it way up there with it, and I like certain aspects of it better.
Mm-hmm. I would say they're pretty even because they both hit the tone correctly. Now, before we go on, just one little tidbit about the hosts. I really enjoy the dynamics of the hosts and the fact that they have this friendly competition with each other. But even at the end, right, it's not like any of the hosts are mad at any of the other teams. They all celebrate in the fact that the winner, and I don't want to spoil it at the beginning, but they all celebrate the winner equally, and I really enjoyed that.
Yep, it was all good. I thought it was a perfect friendly rivalry atmosphere. I do want to say, as far as the hosts go, we should talk about the U.S. one specifically because they are the center of the show. Mm-hmm. I thought they were pretty good. I wouldn't say great, but pretty good. Definitely not bad, especially for a first episode. I'm going to see how the season progresses, but I have a lot of hope. I think they're going to do a good job of it.
Yeah, they do adequately, I guess is the best way to put it. They're not bad. They're not amazing. They're definitely not Matt and Akbar level yet, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the good part about this show is that we don't just have these two hosts. We have 5 teams of hosts. And even where they might lack in some aspects, like in crazy excitement or anything, we have like Team Korea for that. You know, we have other hosts for it. And that's the fun dynamic of it, is that I get to see various different people react to every defeat and victory. And that's really cool.
So that's the hosts. What about the course? Like, how amazing is this course?
I'm sorry, I just got to get right into it. That final stage, that stage 4, man, that that craps all over A&Ws. I'm sorry, that might be the best stage 4 I have ever seen. That is dope, and that is hard. Super hard. Oh my god. With that said, you know, I enjoy the differences with these obstacles. They're very different from A&W, where A&W more hits upon, as we always talk about, the kind of like the 3 foundations of the sport. You know, we have the free running aspects, we have the rock climbing aspects, we have the more, I don't know how you say it, CrossFit-ish, you know, aspects of the sport, you know, but
right.
But this, you know, rather than it just being like a rock climbing wall, and trust me, they still have things like that. They have some really creative stuff where, I don't know, I really enjoyed them. And once again, it's the visual aspect of these obstacles. Every obstacle looks really creative, and it just has this like the sheen to it that makes it part of the whole Beast vision. Not just that, I mean, the whole course looks like its own like reptilian beast. How cool is that, dude? That's so awesome.
Yeah, it really ran the danger of being cheesy, but it didn't end up that way at all. It ends up looking just really high quality and just cool. Like, there's no way to put down the scores. Mm-hmm. My one complaint, I'm a little... Yeah, I don't even know if I call it a complaint. The name of all the obstacles are so over the top with the different parts that they're in and everything, and the beast's blood that they fall in instead of the water. I kind of got that being a little over the top after a while, but other than that, I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when A&W first started, people had similar complaints. I think it's one of those things where we're so used to the names of certain obstacles that when we get new ones like this, we might not think about it as much.
Actually, before we run down the actual stage, I actually want to talk about the scoring system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I really, really like this scoring system way better than anything we've seen on other obstacle shows that we've watched, at least. Mm-hmm. So for those that don't know, it is 10 points per obstacle for level 1, 20 points per obstacle level 2, 30 for level 3, and it's cumulative. So if you did really well in level 1, it gives you an advantage going to level 2, but not an insurmountable advantage, right? So I really like the way that it all piles on top of each other. So there's always a reason to go further. And they have these like point thrusters. So they have these levers that are just out of reach and in these weird little places to make you, if you go out of your way, you can get some extra points. But you don't have to necessarily. So it leads to all these decisions. There's another decision later I want to cover when we get to level 3, but I like the level thrusters, I like the point scoring system, and I love the cumulative effect, kind of like a video game as they kept describing it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually one of my favorite things in terms of comparison to A&W, and I think they even do it better than A&W and Team Ninja Warrior, which is the fact that, as you said, not only are these point values accumulative, and it brings a different dynamic to this particular thing. Not just that, but the time limit also matters because the time limit gives everybody the placement for the next round. So there's all these different facets going into every stage and all these runs where one person's run is going to be entirely different from another person's run based on the decisions they make. And I really, really, really like that. It sounds so minuscule, but when you watch like A&W or especially UK Ninja Warrior or something like that, and you just see like 50 people running the same course and doing the same things, at a certain point, it kind of becomes white noise. And with this, there's always something different. There's always something to look out for. And I really, really appreciated that.
So in level 1, I think the star of the show has to be the energy coils, wouldn't you say?
For stage 1, yeah, definitely. Those are pretty dope. And they look pretty hard. Why don't you describe them?
Yeah, so hanging down, I don't know how high they are above the water, but they're really freaking high. These platforms, I guess, if you want to picture like an upside down mushroom or like a barbell stood on the side, they have to kind of jump from one to the next, and they are far apart, and they are brutalizing themselves jumping from one to the next.
And they swing independently. That's another thing.
Yeah, and they're knocking the wind of themselves. They're like falling and trying to grip onto these things. It looks really difficult. But on top of that, one of the best parts on the energy coils is that one of the point thrusters is off to the side, and they have to make a 10-foot jump over to this other platform. It's long. It seems to be longer than all the rest of them in order to make that, or to get those extra points, and then the leap back is even higher.
It's elevated, yeah.
Yeah. So it is like, it's one thing to get the points, which seem to be not easy, but doable, but a lot of them struggle to get back.
Yeah, and it's very interesting just trying to even put yourself in their shoes. It's like, do I take that risk of going for that point, but then I can just as easily end my run right here, and I don't have an opportunity to rack up even more points completing further obstacles. So it creates such a dynamic right there, and I loved it.
Yeah, and the mag wall at the end is like this rock climbing wall, but the handholds are magnetic and they fall out
They're all
periodically.
falling all over the place.
Like, that's demonic. Like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I saw pieces falling off that nobody was grabbing onto, so I don't know if that's cosmetic or if it's actually going to be a part of the obstacle where somebody's holding on and all of a sudden a piece falls off. I'm still waiting to see that happen. We have much more episodes to go, so I'm just curious if how that really works.
Yeah, I think it just gives a visual dynamic, but it's also got to throw your concentration, right? It's got to make you second guess when you're grabbing hold of things and making you rush a little more.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd be terrified on that thing. I'd be like, every step, I'd be like,
Please don't fall. Please don't fall. But yeah, level 1 is really cool. So let's talk about the competitors and who stood out, I guess, in level 1. I really liked Sean Provost from the US. She was really exciting to watch.
Yeah.
She was struggling on the energy coils, but she made it through. She was knocking the wind out of herself pretty clearly, jumping across one of them. But she made it to the mag wall. She did better than there was. All the teams were kind of a mix. They weren't all like male, female, or anything like that. But the U.S. team was male and female, and the woman made it further than the guy. She made it to the mag wall, which was really solid and actually made her move on to level 2.
She was really impressive, and I really appreciate the fact that you can see that this entire competition meant a lot to her. Like, she really gave it her all. Even when she was struggling, like the wind's completely knocked out of her, she still struggles to hold on. And that was really cool. Not just that, I mean, the other thing that really stood out, and this is actually something that I think is far better than A&W or any other show that we've seen, is their approach to showing off these competitors and introducing us. The vignettes that we have right before the initial runs are very short, very clean, and they tell us exactly what these competitors are. And then we go into their runs. At least I know something about them, and I kind of care about them because just the presence and the presentation. It's hard to describe guys, but they do an amazing job. Very quick. That's the important part. Very quick, so it's not boring. And then we see them run. And then anybody that gets to stage 2, we get a little bit more about them and more intrigued by them and more invested in them. And then it goes on from there. And I really, really appreciated that. The one thing this show does far better than any other show in the medium is definitely how they introduce these competitors and the vignettes that they have. Very clean, very crisp.
Yeah, no complaints. I thought they fast forwarded too many at first. But as I watched, I realized how much more there was to the show. So at first I was a little confused by how many were getting fast forwarded off the bat. But I think they struck the right balance.
Yeah, and the ones that are fast forwarding were clearly the ones we didn't need to really see. I guess trying to be nice, but that's what I can say about that.
Yeah, to be fair. So she stood out to me. Who's one of your picks? Who did you like off the bat?
Yeah, there were some really good competitors. The one that stood out the most to me really was Hyung Park. His poise on these obstacles are really good. And I think it also has a little bit to do with the fact that I wasn't really sure what I was expecting from this guy. He's kind of low-key. He's a lot smaller than a lot of the competitors. But when you saw him and his poise and not only that, but his approach to these obstacles, that was the thing that stood out to me. When my entire time reviewing all of these shows and A&W and everything, it's not really the competitors that come from a really good background, and obviously that's important. But the thing that stands out to me more are competitors that approach new obstacles in very intelligent ways. That's why Joe Moravsky really stands out to me, and Drew Dreschel, people like that, you know? And Hyung Park, every time we saw him facing an obstacle on stage 1 that was traditionally giving a lot of people problems, his approach was very different and very, very, I guess, he was just very intelligent about doing every obstacle and very creative in how he was doing them as well. Very good. Not just that, I mean, you could just see, because he comes from an ice climbing background, which is very, very similar to rock climbing, he was just picture perfect for all the upper body obstacles as well. So he was really high. He really stood out to me a lot.
I think this course actually requires a more thoughtful, athletically profound approach than we normally would have, because you are not going to have a backyard version of these things.
You are not. I think that's the cool thing about this show also, is that none of these competitors can really train for them. It's kind of like the very first A&W or the very first Sasuke, you know? It's like completely new things.
Yeah, like I cannot picture how you would ever build energy coils. Like you would need a massive budget to do that kind of thing.
And, you know, kind of break your ribs. Like, these things are asking for it.
Now, like, they made the clanging noise. Those things weren't metal, right? Tell me those things weren't metal.
No, they're
I'm
not metal.
Not just foolish there.
They're not metal, but they were made with some incredibly hard material. Like, there was some give on it, but you can tell it was still hard. And for everybody trying to, like, get a picture of it, when they would jump, they could only be able to grab on most of the competitors were only able to hold on with this little tiny tube hanging from it, and they would be slamming their pelvis and their chest into this portion on the bottom that sticks out, and it seems like a really hard material, and it looks like it just knocks your diaphragm completely out, and I don't know, it looked painful, man. So I appreciated the obstacle, but whew, tough.
Yeah, they get some wicked bruises from it for sure. So I think one of the most impressive runs of the night, besides Hyung Park, who was, by the way, the only finisher of the level, was Simon Brunner, who actually ended up in first place. And that kind of shows the importance of those extra point thrusters. He used those to actually end up in first place after level 1. But this dude was so fast. He did fall on the mag wall, but he was killing it up to that point.
Yeah, to me, he was the epitome of that young up and comer, like that kind of like cocky young athletic kid that really isn't using his brain all that much for these obstacles, but using all of his brawn for everything. And it made it really fun because I'm like, this kid, he can kill it. He has all the gifts, but maybe he's just going to get a little too cocky at some point for these obstacles. And I really had fun watching him run. It was just, how do I describe it, man? I mean, the way he would just run into these things, he would just thrust himself into them. And he would be so athletically profound in a way, right? That he'd just get through them. But there was no thought involved like doing these things at all. So it was kind of cool. I like that.
He didn't seem to think about it a lot. Like, he probably planned it out ahead of time, but it was just the way it was so smooth and so careless. Like careless or carefree, a toss-up between those two things.
I think it just, he's 18, and he fit that role very perfectly. He's that very young, cocky kid, and I loved it.
Yeah, that's funny, because actually, I said to my daughter who was watching it with me, I said, I wish I was 18 again. And I think I'm almost positive that Terry Crews jumped in with to be 18 again at the exact same moment I said it.
Oh, don't we all wish that?
Just reckless abandon. Just throw your body into it. Whatever. I'll regrow a limb if I have to.
Well, before we go on, I mean, we just had a few competitors. I will have to say, with the other competitors on different teams, they all brought kind of a theme to their stories, which I really liked. Team Japan kind of had an underdog story where they kind of just wanted to make it through. So Team Brazil had this really cool background story of multiple members of their team doing it for their family, coming from harsh backgrounds, kind of overcoming the odds of life. And I really appreciated that backstory. Team Mexico had this really cool story between at least two of the competitors where they're all kind of helping each other out. And even though this kind of is an individualized competition, they're all in it together, at least for the sake of their team. So I really like the fact that they had these kind of subplots of stories between all of the teams of kind of like tonal or themed stories. And it really was cool to see. Honestly, the team that didn't have much of a story at all was Team USA, and I heard that sucks to say, but I have a feeling later episodes you're going to get more dynamics from USA. But I was very impressed by how they approached this show from a story perspective from the competitors, because we're going to see all these obstacles again, just like ANW and everything. What really makes these shows different are the competitors, and I have to say their approach was absolutely perfect. So, yeah, all around, even though we got so many competitors in stage one, I liked it.
Yeah, it is also worth pointing out that I don't get my daughter to watch A&W with me very often, but she has watched USA versus the World. And here we are I got her to watch this with me, and Team Japan gets knocked out in the level 1, and she goes, wow, Japan really just doesn't have a good time with these shows, do they? And I'm like, no, not really, I guess. I'm hoping they do better in the later episodes.
I have a feeling at least one Team Japan is going to do quite well. His name's Yuji. Just some random dude. Yeah.
He may do okay.
He may do all right.
So moving on to level 2, we had 7 new obstacles, now worth 20 points apiece. And there are some really cool, different obstacles on this one. Some of them even not even that not that complicated, I guess, if you want to call it that. I just loved the really subtle ones, the really interesting ones.
Oh yeah, I agree, because like the first obstacle they do, when you initially look at it, you're like, this is lame. Like, this is dumb. But then you see the competitors on it and you're like, oh, this is a lot more difficult than it seems. And I don't know how to describe this really, but it's like different ledges that go up and down from different points. And the way the ledge is made, I mean, it's a lot harder to pull yourself up from if you're just like hanging from it, because it's not really like a pointed ledge. It kind of has like this foamy, like, I don't know, this part that gives, right? So it kind of gets a slant when you're trying to pull yourself up. And like the gaps between these ledges are quite big. So at a certain point, you're just hanging from a ledge, like you're hanging from a cliff, and you're trying to pull yourself up on these guys. And it looks tough, because not just like you're not just climbing up a stationary thing; it's moving, and that makes it really difficult.
Yeah, it is very cool. It's like jumping from like moving your way up a building by jumping from balcony to balcony or something. It's very neat to watch.
Mm-hmm. And then we got like some rope stuff, but that's whatever. But like, what about this?
See, that's the part.
Oh, go
That's
ahead.
the thing, though. The spinal descent. So that was the spinal ascent. The spinal descent is the one that I liked. Right after that, it's like all of these like bungee cords or something. They gotta work their way down through really meticulously, or they can just say screw it and jump down through the whole thing like one of the guys does. Like, it's really cool to watch.
It's a cool look, but that one kind of stood out to me like as an easy transition one. The one that stood out to me that's difficult is the stomach churner. That's next. That looks rough.
That might be my new favorite obstacle. I think that is absolutely fantastic. It is like a series of gears, and they have to jump onto them, and there's like these little spinning platforms. So they jump up to a spinning platform, and it's just winging around in circles, and they have to try to jump from that spinning platform onto the next one. And it just looks like it would be like just so difficult and so confusing and disorienting to try to do. I can't see anyone making light of it. Like, I don't see anyone just kind of bounding their way through it.
Yeah, there's so many different components to them because the gears are at different levels, different like angles. They're at different sizes, which I think is very much underestimated. I mean, when you have a different size gear, and you're trying to jump into like a small one, that's going to make a world of difference. Not just that, they're spinning independently, man. So like the longer you are trying to plan this out, the more you're getting disoriented. It's so creative and so cool. And I just love everything about them. And not just that, the last one, it's very, very far away from the middle gear. And there's this giant gap that they have to jump, and the gear is lower too. So some of these competitors are slamming their bodies into this final gear. And I mean, like, to a scary degree. Where I thought, like, at least the very first competitor, I forget his name, but he landed right on his shoulder, and it looked like he would have like dislocated his shoulder landing on that thing. So it's a very cool component. And then right from that, you go right into this tube where the instant you go onto this tube where you got to go in an elevated degree angle, you have to climb up, you have to go through this tube because it's lowering. So you have to speed up. There, like, as soon as you're done with this disoriented obstacle, you have an obstacle that's timed because you will be dropped into the water if you don't. So many components to this thing that I really like.
Yeah. Like, how do you improve on these things? Like the digestive tract, like that one, they have to get up it. So they might make it to the top of the tube, but it's fallen so much that they can't leap to the next platform, the dread mills. It's just one cool obstacle after another. No one actually completed this level. The furthest anyone got was the chain reaction, which was right after that.
Are you sure? Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought the German dude. Oh, that's right, because he dropped at the chains. Yeah, you're right.
So we haven't got a chance to see the vertebrace yet, which is kind of infamous in the previews. We get to see everybody's favorite competitor up in there, so we're still waiting to see those.
It's cool that, this is one cool thing about this show that's very different. I don't know. Some people might love it. Some people might hate it. But the fact is that not all competitors have to complete every obstacle on the course, that it is based on a point system rather than just a time limit and completion rate. So I actually kind of appreciate that approach. I would hate it if A&W changed to this. I like the fact that they're different, but I absolutely do not mind that at all.
Yeah, at least it gives so much variety, and you're never really out of it. I mean, I'm sure it's possible in some ways to get knocked out of it before you even run, but for the most part, if you can make it through, you're going to move on, but you don't have to quite make it, right? You just have to kind of do better than everyone else, and you carry over your score. I can't say that enough because it really is a cool aspect to this, that if you killed it on stage 1, but do something stupid on stage 2 early on, you still might be okay if someone else can't make up the difference, right? So and those bonus things make all these weird little quirks to it where you're going, do you go for the bonus or not? And you can decide if you're ahead, then maybe not go after it and, kind of maintain your lead without risking it. But if you need the points, they're there to get. It's just very, very cool.
Mm-hmm. One run I really want to talk about before we go on to stage 3 is Sean's run from stage 2. She's from Team USA, and she gave so much passion and effort to her run. She ended up falling, or semi-falling, on the very first obstacle, the one where it was the elevated platforms. And she kind of fell to the very last platform, but instead of falling into the water, she held on for her dear life. And she was holding on for a while, trying to find every way and effort possible to get up on that ledge again. And she gave it her all, and I really appreciated that. And not just that, even after she fell into the water and she wasn't able to make it, you can see the heartbreak on her face. She was huffing and puffing and crying. And it wasn't just like some little disappointed cry. It was like a genuine cry. And it's moments like those that bring these types of competitions over to the next level. And I actually really felt for her, and it was a really cool emotional situation. And once again, the host let her have her moment. You know, the show hit that tone with it, and we were able to get to the same level with her, you know, and it really made a world of difference. And that was like a really cool moment from this episode for me.
Yeah, she did great, but she did unfortunately go out early in level 2. Her and 2 other competitors, actually. It's that very first obstacle, which, like you said, doesn't look all that complicated, is really difficult. You can see it. And as we go into later episodes, which I've already kind of started into, it continues to be a very difficult obstacle for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into level 3, because this level is very cool.
Always stage 3, man. These shows know how to do stage 3 quite right. I don't know.
So level 3 has one of the coolest little innovations in course design I think I've seen.
Yes.
It starts with an ejector, which we should mention this giant treadmill. It just launches them off at the end of it, which is very cool to watch.
It's so funny watching these competitors get on it, because they are just like, they instantly fall backwards or do something. It's never like a smooth transition.
No, very few. And they have to follow this prism strike, they call it. They just hold onto a rope handle and it swings around this curved track, which is really long and very cool to watch.
Yeah, but not just that. On the track while they're going down it, they have to lift up their body and kip up over a bar. And then, if they want to, they can kip up and hit a point thruster on the way while moving. But the cool part is they only have one shot, and they are moving at a very fast pace. So it's actually a lot more difficult than it seems. But I like those dynamics. It's kind of like a video game where it's like, you got one shot, can you get it? If not, better keep moving. But the coolest part, I'm sure you're about to go into detail with it, Rich, is the next part of this course.
Yeah, so they crawl through this coil crawl, which is sinking into the water like a lot of these obstacles, which makes everything so much more cool. But they get to a path, and they can decide. They can go right to go the easy way, and they only have to complete one more obstacle, which we didn't even get to see, called the extractor. But if they go left, the hard way, which everybody opted for that made it there, they can do 3 bonus obstacles. Now, the bonus obstacles are worth 40 points each, so they're really high scoring. It's 30 for the rest of the obstacles in this particular level. But if they miss one, they lose 40 points. So if you attempt that... Oh, yeah, because if you attempt this path and you fail the first obstacle, you actually set yourself back.
Mm-hmm. Like, what a good idea. Whoever thought of this stuff, so good. I mean, that really brings a very interesting dynamic, especially for if you're going later on, because now you get to look at the field and look at what, like, the amount of points that I need to get. Because if you're going on and you only need to make up like a 30-point difference, you don't necessarily have to go for the optional like obstacles. You can just go to the extractor and finish up off the course, and you're moving on to the 4th stage. So it really brings in a very interesting dynamic, not only from the previous rounds of the accumulated points, but also the time that you completed stage 2, because that creates the placement of this for everybody running in this one. Once again, so smart.
Very, very smart. And I'd like to talk about these obstacles in there too, because the bungee beds are these platforms that are on bungees that they have to go from one to the next.
That's what you want to talk about, out of all the obstacles, man, this is the one. It's so simple, but yet so difficult. And the way, like, this is not an obstacle, and this is the kind of stuff I love. I'm sure you all know it. It's not the obstacles where you can just muscle through it or whatever. Oh, it's a rock climbing wall. Whoop-de-doo, you know? It's obstacles like this where you really have to think, and you have to use different parts of your body and just really try to figure this thing out. It is so brilliant. The hidden little aspect of this thing, like we have the beds or platforms suspended by bungees, and these are very slick bungees. These things are moving, you know, but if it just touches the ground one instant, you're out. And these things get really close to the ground. So every little tiny movement you make, even a shift of your body, can spell doom for your run. It is so brilliant and cool. And it is, I don't know about you, man, Rich, but it made so much drama and tension every time they're on these things.
Yeah, because they can't shift their weight. Like, it's such a devious obstacle. It requires such precision, and they seem to have a couple of different techniques for it, but it was just hit or miss. Like, they could so easily end their run, like, instantly trying to get from one platform to the next. It was... that's just a great obstacle all around. Like, there's no complaints with that obstacle at all.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that that's the very first optional one, because that makes it even more of a tough choice being, do I go for the optional ones? Because the one that's most likely to just knock me out based on some tiny mistake is the very first one. I love that.
I don't know, man. The next two are no joke either.
No, but the first one, I feel like that can knock somebody out if they're just going for muscle.
Right. After that was some trapeze bars, which were kind of cool. But the last one was called Weapon, which were these weird grip handles with this. I can't even describe these things. They're the weirdest little handles to try to move up these long pipes.
It's kind of like the Wave Runner in many aspects, but like on tubes that you got to go down with the planks. But didn't it kind of remind you of a Wave Runner?
Not really. No.
Well, the way a Wave Runner works is that you're extended with your arms above your head, and you have to go from an inward position to an outward position with your arms using various aspects of your upper body, and then vice versa. And this kind of is the same way in terms of the, you know, obviously it's not the same format, but in terms of like the muscles that you're using, it's very similar. And as we've seen with the Wave Runner, it's not easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see it would definitely use the same muscle groups. That makes sense. But yeah, that's level 3. We had to see them go through that. And we were really, like I said, my daughter and I watched it. We were both rooting for the same two to get through. And thankfully they did. Yep. It was, when it was all said and done, we ended up with the two going to level 4 were Hyung Park from South Korea and Simon Brunner, the two that we mentioned from back in level 1. They were definitely the strongest early on in the episode, and neither one of them slipped up enough to ruin their chances, and it was like the perfect ending to the episode.
Yeah, not just that, the two perfect competitors going against each other in the end, because they're very different from each other. We have Brunner that's very young, youthful, kind of cocky, almost in a way unlikable, because like he describes where he's from like, oh, I'm from this boring old town where there's nothing to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, like he kind of comes off a little but not in a very bad way, like you can actively hate him. But it's like, if I have to choose between him and like Park, I'm going to choose Park all day long, right? And he also just like alludes the part where he's getting by based on his muscle, or not his muscles, but his athleticism. Whereas you have the complete dichotomy with Park, where he's very intelligently going through all of these obstacles. He's actually, and by the way, Park, he completed both stages 1 and 3. The thing that kept knocking Brunner down with these is he was making such little, tiny, small, dumb mistakes, trying to get through them too quickly. So it was a very fun dynamic between these two going into it, where it's like, is Brunner going to make a dumb mistake again because he's so athletic, especially compared to all these other competitors? Or is Park going to win based on just his intelligence and his poise getting through all these things? And Yeah, it was a really fun dynamic, and I have to say, actually, I really enjoyed the fact that they completely wiped out the point system for the fourth stage. At that point, they've made it to the end. Now we just have to see who's better.
Yeah, yep, that's perfect. I couldn't agree more. At first, I was a little iffy on it, and then when I saw how it plays out, it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's perfect for how you do it.
Yeah, because you don't want to go into the fourth stage being like, well, one guy is like 50 points behind, so he doesn't really have a chance. It doesn't create as much drama. And, at this point, honestly, it's whoever is better. I am perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, if I was going to complain, so moving into level 4 here, which is extremely cool, I would almost complain about it being so, climbing dependent, but at the same time, I mean, we're used to A&W. That's it's usually a rope climb. What are you going to do?
It's better than a damn rope climb.
Yeah.
Hey, climb a rope. Don't get me started. Anyways, this one, I like the fact that it's not just one thing. Even though it is upper body, heavy, at this point, there are components of it where you do have to use your legs, and actually quite a bit, because I've done a certain obstacle where it's it doesn't look it, but it's way more on your legs than it looks. And actually, one of these competitors had some troubles with it. But there's actually 3 components of this stage, and all of them are difficult in their own aspects, and the very third part of it is just brutal. And the coolest thing about it is that it really makes you think. There are little parts of it where you really have to think about your approach in doing it. And I like that. Also, kind of the fact that it's not a race, dude. It's actually cumulative as well, where you have to hit little nodes to get points. And it's actually based on the points. I like that too.
Yeah, so there's little green buttons up this climbing wall. It's 4 parts, basically, up this wall.
Oh, yeah, there's 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the foundation. It's a standard rock climbing wall with green buttons that they have to hit as they go up for 10 points each. And then there's the gridlock. That's a vertical climb only using small slits in the wall section. So imagine there's just tiny gaps along the walls to use to kind of...
That looks brutal, dude.
Yeah.
Man, it is so hard to describe, guys, but it is... I don't know how these guys are doing that one.
Then you have ventilator, which is competitors must climb upwards by pressing themselves in between 2 vertical platforms. It's a spider climb, basically.
It's a spider climb, but with nodes off on the side. But the spider climb, it looks like there's some competitors that make that thing look way easier than it is. That thing is really, really hard on the groin muscles and the outer thighs, and that just wears and tears your leg muscles. So that's a little hidden lower body portion of the course.
And then at the top, and they're climbing really high for this too, and it ends with this one called high voltage, which is 2 narrow ledges that they have to climb on to try to reach the top, which looks impossible. We had an ice climber on here, and he couldn't do it. I don't know that anyone's going to be able to do that.
I mean, it's these ledges are on a slick wall, too. There is nothing else on it. So there's not these little tiny bits and pieces that you can get some traction. There's nothing. You just have that small little ledge, and this ledge has got to be what, Rich? Maybe 6 inches at the most. This thing is not something where you can just I'm gonna grab onto it, and then I'm gonna prop up my knee or lean my body forward onto it to lift up. It's no, there's no give. There is nothing. As soon as you're holding onto it, you need to find a way to get on that, and I don't even know how you can. It's crazy cool, and I'm really curious about the creative ways competitors are going to be able to get on that, because you really, really have to think.
So yeah, it is point-based, but if you've hit every button along the way, they're going to be tied at that point, which is what we had here. And at the end, it actually goes to the competitor who is higher on the tower. So they're both struggling to get as high as they possibly can on these ledges, which was really interesting to watch. I actually thought one of them was going to make it up onto the ledge. Specifically, I thought that Park was going to make it, but he didn't in the end. But he did end up higher than Brunner and ended up becoming the first Beastmaster.
Yeah, perfect ending. And I like the fact that it is timed also, so we don't have to wait like 5 minutes and just seeing all these guys like fail like a million attempts to try to get to the second ledge, you know? Once again, the show introduces so many different avenues to every course. It's not just some like very narrow, stringent way of doing it. There's all these different facets. And I don't know, man. Perfect ending to a great show. An amazing format. I mean, every part of the show has been hitting all gears for me. I really loved it. The question mark and the big question mark for me right now is, obviously they have a design with this course and the beast and everything. So it's not going to be like ANW with qualifiers where it's like the course changes up and you see all these different obstacles. I'm very worried, and like this is going to be a wait and see of if by episode 5 the course just gets really stale to me and the format gets stale. That's going to be the question mark that this show is going to have to, I guess, overcome. Now, I'm kind of bullish on it just by the fact that they're really good at introducing the competitors, and the hosts have such a fun dynamic that it might not be an issue, but that's going to be the one thing that's going to be a question mark for me going into the later episodes.
Yeah, me too. That was my only question mark. That's funny you say that, because that was the only thing that I'm worried about, is that it might get a little stale. And if that starts to happen, I'm going to have to find a way to get to South Korean Netflix to enjoy it even more.
I like that. You know, I might join you on that, because they were the best, man.
They were highlight. As much as we had good hosts for the US and we had all kinds of great competitors, I'm telling you, they were the most entertaining thing of that episode by far.
Yeah, their celebration, like they'd always have celebration dances. They'd always have songs. They'd be like screaming and freaking out. Their energy and enthusiasm was so electric and so fun.
Yeah, absolutely enjoyed it. And speaking of fantastic shows, let's do Ninja Warrior UK.
Oh, shame on you. Shame on you for ever saying those things in the same. Ugh.
Yeah, it's just not getting any better, and I'm just so grateful. So unbelievably grateful that we only have one more to do after this one.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the point where it's just boring to me. Because the one thing is that really annoying host, he was there, but he wasn't so obtrusive where he was laughing at every single competitor. Like, I don't know what happened between these two episodes, but like the second part of the finals, you can definitely tell he stopped laughing at every little thing, but like the damage was already done. I didn't care about any competitors, man. I was just so bored out of my mind.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because he did seem to calm it down this episode. It was much more bearable from that aspect anyway. Course is the same as last time. I'm not going to run through them all. The first competitor they brought out had a dog mask on, and it was just played up so much that I was just like, yeah, this show is just not going to redeem itself at any point, is it?
Nope. I mean, that has everything you want to say to it. I mean, a guy in a dog mask, and it's not like, I don't know, he's just really they were doing goofy music with it, and once again, I mean, this is the semifinals, and yet we're getting this.
And it's not that he's wearing a costume. You have to understand, this guy is down on his hands and knees, like scratching at the floor and pretending he's a dog. Like, it is well beyond the fire breathing and the Captain NBC stuff that we're used to. It is like next level ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, the only competitor that really stood out to me on this entire episode was the ninja guy. I forget his name, but there was this guy that, I don't know, something about him. I really was rooting for him. I guess he just seems like a fun guy. He's embracing the Ninja Warrior aspect of the show. He kind of reminds me of Captain NBC in various aspects. Did you get that feel?
Maybe. I'm not sure which guy you mean, to be honest.
I think he was like a fat guy before or something like that.
You must be talking about Leon the Legend. He was in a sumo suit for the original one, and he came back in like probably the coolest outfit I've ever seen anyone run a Ninja Warrior course in. It was like one of the most notable things about the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot his nickname was a legend, and he was a legend to me because out of all this crap-tacular stuff, I mean, he definitely stood out, so that's legendary in itself. And just something about his personality and his approach to the show, I was rooting for him.
Yeah, I like that guy. That guy stood out for sure. I did like, there was a point where a guy named Jack, he's 6'6", and he was like really struggling on the chimney climb. That really drew me in. I thought That was a good moment. He was really tall guy. He was pretty solid through most of the course. He was really solid actually. But it came to the chimney climb. It's really brutal on the taller guys, and he was just fighting his way up it, and that was good. That was really worth watching.
Yeah, that is an obstacle not made for people with long legs. It is so hard.
I kind of didn't like the fact of the formatting where only the top 15 move on. So we had finishers that were getting bumped off left and right as the show wore on, just based on their time for completing stage 2. Just seemed kind of odd.
Yeah. I kind of feel like they packed, this episode with some of the tougher competitors, because in the first semifinal, we only had 15 competitors, so it fit out perfectly. I'm actually happy by that, because my favorite competitor, I forget her name, but the only female finisher on the semifinals, she placed 15, so I'm glad she didn't get knocked out. But it was really interesting that this half of the semifinals had so many completionists.
I mean, there were others, obviously some really good people on there. I'm not to bash the competitors at all. Ed Scott flew through the whole thing. He had the fastest time at like 2 minutes, 9 seconds. Like, there were some really solid competitors in there. It's just the formatting of the show was just killing it for us. So, unfortunately, we're going to take it on the competitors and not kind of go through our typical rundowns of everything. There's just so much we can do. I'm a little confused when they talked about the finals coming up, though. Did you notice they said there's 3 stages, 18 obstacles? It almost sounded like they're going to do the whole thing again. Like, did I miss something?
I mean, that'd be really unfortunate if they did that. I always figured they'd have like a finals different course, but at that point I really wasn't paying attention. I guess we'll have to wait and see for next week. And I don't know. The one thing I'll have to say is that at this point we had 7 hours of this show, and we only had 1 hour of Ultimate Beastmaster. And I cared so much more about Park and Brenner than I did than any other competitor on this entire show, and that says a lot. You can't enjoy you failed at everything.
That is funny. That is absolutely true. I'm really excited to see Park in the finals. Like, I want to see the final episode and see how he does. So, I mean, I get really hooked. And even Brenner, who came in second, way more invested than any of the guys we've seen on this other show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's move on to the National Ninja League, which was at Warrior Sports this time. So for the men, we had in third place Mitch Videpo, who fell on a PVC pipe transition, which looked really difficult. Which also took out Garrett Takach, who is in second place. And in first, we had Cody Ratterman, who managed to make it past that PVC transfer and through some other parkour type obstacles, jumping from ledges and ended up falling on a cliffhanger transfer. Like, the course looked pretty solid here. It was a little bit different than we normally see.
Yeah. It's more simplistic looking obstacles that are very, very tough on your body. And sometimes I like, back to the basics feels. Now, with the PVC pipes, the thing that stuck out to me was, it's 2 PVC pipes back to back, kind of like, they kind of remind me of the unstable bridge, and the fact that even though they're PVC pipes and everything like you think of would want you to like swing up your legs and grab onto the second PVC pipe with your legs, they'd have to do the transitions with only their upper body, and that really messed up a lot of people because of the gap. And yeah, I liked that small dynamic. I mean, it's very simple, 2 hanging PVC pipes, but yet that's the obstacle that's knocking out a lot of people. One thing I really liked is they had to roll on a PVC pipe, like on a bouncing thing, and roll it down 3 different stair levels, and that is so hard. So I really enjoyed that one also. And they had like mushroom climbing holds and stuff like that. Different things where, once again, more simple base looking, but very, very tough.
Yeah, it's like a downhill balance tank, I think they basically would call it. So you're rolling on a PVC pipe like a log roller type deal, but it's down some exercise mats or something. Like, it looked like it'd be really difficult to stay on there.
I would do a backflip on that thing so immediately. Like, I would have no shot.
Be like me on the ice last night in my yard. Ouch. For the women, in third place, we had Sarah Heeson. In second place, we had Lauren Woodcock. And in first, our good friend Kirsty Pratt.
Kirsty killing it.
She is. But all three women and actually ended up going on the same obstacle. It was all a matter of who got there quicker. It was these pegboard cannonballs things. I think called them peg bombs. That were really stretched out far apart. And it was really, really tough for the women with the shorter wingspan to try to get through.
Yeah, this brings up, sometimes those questions, especially at the regional circuit, where some obstacles are definitely made with men and their body types in mind, where it presents very, very tough challenges for the women. And it's something that a lot of people, always go back and forth on, where it's like, should these obstacles maybe be kind of modified when it's only exclusive towards women? I mean, I understand when these obstacles have to be the same, like on ANW or something, because all athletes are in the same competition. But the women are only competing against other women when it comes to National Ninja League. So when we have this type of environment and these holds are spread out so incredibly far where these women's wingspans just can't really get them to get on these obstacles, it brings up that interesting dynamic of, should we have maybe an extra peg and have them a little bit closer together? I don't know. Just an interesting debate for everybody to think of.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a men versus women thing. I just think, as a height challenged person, I would like to see the courses designed with us in mind, where you can only reach so far, and it's not a physical ability, it's just a limitation, right? So I'd like to see them designed for that a little more, right? Like, where it doesn't matter what your wingspan is, it should be possible to do it in some way. I don't even know how you get around that, but I know we have a lot of obstacles, even upper body obstacles, similar obstacles that aren't, reliant on you to have this crazy reach.
Mm-hmm. I feel you. I mean, once again, it's an interesting conversation to have. Everybody think about it.
Yeah, but there's usually trade-offs too, right? Like you said, it looked like something like I'm going to think of it as chimney climb, the spider climb, is harder on the taller competitors. So, I mean, there is trade-offs along the way too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is more for, regional circuits, Rich, not,
No, I'm talking about the
ANW.
final. No. We're always talking about ANW.
Well, ANW, once again, everything I can understand. But when we have regional circuit thing where it's women versus women, and we have the opportunity to see them get further and try all the different obstacles, if there's something like this where it's hard for everybody to think of, but it's a mushroom pegboard climbing hold, and you see these competitors have completely stretched out wingspans, and it's impossible to hold up your body like that. I mean, you have to be that gymnast type person doing that. I forget what it's called, but like that Jesus pose.
The iron cross.
I mean, they basically have to do like the iron cross to get it from one to the other, and it's a mushroom grip, so you can't really just hold on like that. I mean, that's where it becomes almost ridiculous in a certain way, where since the women are just competing against women, it's nothing else. It'd be nice to see them have an opportunity to get it just a little bit closer to the pegs and see that, like, how competitors can get far, because at that point it's kind of based on timing.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair point. So moving on to our ninja news, as a reminder, Team Ninja Warrior is starting in 2 weeks.
Woo woo!
It's going to be on March 7th. We'll be able to see it on Esquire. If you have Esquire, or if you live in another country other than the U.S., I guess you just don't get to watch it. Thank you very much, Esquire.
Well, many people in the U.S. won't have Esquire soon either.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that burndo.
Oh. We'll all find a way, I'm sure. Everyone definitely has to find a way, because we will be covering Team Ninja Warrior one way or another.
Well, it's going to be digitally online, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get it on iTunes. I think I tried that last time and it wouldn't let me because I was in a different country, but I'll figure it out.
They really hate you Canadians, man.
They do. They do. I swear it's personal. I love, like, not to give any more praise to Ultimate Beastmaster, but the fact that I have Netflix, I can just watch it on Netflix, and there's no worries about where to find it.
Man, I'm shocked they didn't have a Canadian host talking about a boot and everything.
Boot? Yes. And as a reminder, the ANW Fantasy League is running. You're running out of time, right? We're going to start the LA qualifier soon. You have to get your teams in soon if you want to qualify for the prize that someone unnamed may have won last season.
Oh, they're not unnamed. Their name's Bijan, and yeah, Champ is here. The champ just sent in his picks, so the champ will be announcing those picks when the poll is done, because I'm not going to have everybody copy the champ's picks, but just know the champ is going to defend his belt and his title forever.
I feel like I took a risk. I put my picks in as well, and I kind of wanted to go a little outside the norm. So I'm hoping I didn't go too far, didn't stretch a little bit. I wanted to kind of make sure I gave some of the underappreciated ninjas some choices. I'm putting my faith in them, and I can't wait to announce them. So a couple weeks from now, we'll announce our picks, and we'll see how we make out.
It's so like a 50-50 chance that we have the same teams, and we're both going to like scream when they're announced.
Last year we had some common people, but we had a few different ones too. And the scoring system's changed up a little bit this year. We'll see how that washes out in the end too.
I did not know that. Okay.
Uh-oh.
It said
the
I
camp
don't
is
look at the
nervous
rules.
now.
Yeah, I don't look at the rules, man. I was just like, I'll just pick the guys. Yeah, have fun. Champ ain't got time for all that.
So this is episode 95. We are coming up on our 100th episode, and we'd kind of like to celebrate it with you. So we had an idea. If you want to send us an audio clip, a short audio clip, try to keep it 10 to 20 seconds max. We could feature you on our 100th episode of the podcast. And even more exciting, what I'd really like to do, we've both been talking about, is putting together a video clip. So whether you're a competitor or not, whether you're an athlete, or if you're at a gym doing something and you want to show that off, or if you're just sitting at home and want to give us a shout, we'd love to get your video clips together, and we're going to put together something to celebrate our 100th episode with you. We're also going to reach out directly to some of the ninjas and see if we can get together something. We've got a little over a month to do it. We probably should have thought of this another month or two ago, but whatever. We're going to try to do what we can, and really excited to see what we can get together in this at almost the last minute.
Yeah. I mean, it's all fun. And once again, this podcast is about the community. All our friends, you're all of our friends and almost like our family. And we're a fun little community of super fans that love this show and this sport. And it's more of a celebration of that we've made it almost 100 episodes. Well, at that point, 800 episodes. How crazy is that, guys? So, show your love, not only for, I don't want a schmooze fest of like, Rich and Bijan, you're great, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to hear how you feel about the podcast, your favorite moments, maybe just what the sport means to you, maybe your favorite competitors. Say whatever you like. But once again, this is your opportunity to just speak from the heart and be part of this show with us. And yeah, love you guys. Thanks for being through this crazy journey with us.
Yeah, we love you all. And speaking of, that's actually a pretty decent segue to a real quick shout out to Sean Richardson, who sent us one of the best application videos I think we've ever seen. And I don't want to share it out quite yet. I want to wait till he gets picked. I don't want to jinx him or anything. So we'll hold on to it for now. But Sean, thank you for sending that in. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, those production values on this video, guys, they are on point. Like, props to whoever edited it. It sounds like it's your wife. If so, you owe her many hugs and kisses. Thumbs up.
Yeah, very creative too. Like, it wasn't the typical one. It had a lot of the same elements, but presented in a nice creative way. Great job, Sean. All around great job.
Mm-hmm.
So that is it for this week. If you want to send us your audio or video, you can send them to me at rich@ninjapodcast.com. You can reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram as @ninjapodcast. And Bijan, how can they reach you?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a beastastic week.
Peace, y'all. Beast. 10 feet, right?
Yes, I'm double checking.
Second point thruster. Come on, say it. How far are you? 10-foot jump. There we go. That's a 10-foot jump. All right.